This conference will now be recorded.
So I want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us online. People continue to come into the room, but I want to go ahead and get started so that we don't lose too much time. Just very quickly, we are recording this session and we'll share it with the partner agencies. So the intention is that there will be links provided so that it can be watched after this initial broadcast. I am doing my best to mute everybody as they come in, but if you would please try to self-police yourself and mute your audio, and so that it is limited to the presenter only. It would be greatly appreciated. It's real easy to get background noise picking up and it makes it hard for other people to hear. We're going to use the chat function to handle questions. So the plan is to go through all of the presentation with Marty from the SBDC at Eastern Florida State College. If that raises a question and you would like to share it via chat, please feel free to do that, but we're going to go through the entirety of the presentation and then take a look at what has not been covered, what questions were not covered through the entirety of the presentation, and go from there. I realize that that may not apply to those of you that are calling in. So as we go through, if your question wasn't, we're going to have to just take this a little bit on the fly. If your question isn't handled throughout the presentation, maybe at the end, we'll let the ability for those that have called in to unmute and go from there. I've set the meeting for an hour and a half so that we don't get disconnected, hopefully. And then we will follow up with all of the slides that are presented today. I'll follow up in an email to everyone at the conclusion of this with all of the slides that the SBDC provided. And I just want to thank all of the agencies that have collaborated on this. The 4 chambers of commerce, the Titusville Area Chamber of Commerce, the Cocoa Beach Regional Chamber of Commerce, the Melbourne Regional Chamber of Commerce, and the Greater Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Economic Development Commission of Florida Space Coast, We Venture, of course, the SBDC, and Groundswell. So I thank everybody for getting together and trying to tackle this collaboratively. And with that, I believe I'm going to find Marty and make him the presenter in here, and we'll get started with his presentation. So if I did this right, Marty, you are now the presenter and you can share your screen. All right, everybody should be seeing his desktop screen with his PDFs. And okay. I think we're good to go. So Marty, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I was able to dial in on my phone. Are you on mute? They have me muted.
Okay.
Whatever that is, I do not have you muted.
Oh.
Okay, Marcia. So
okay,
I'm good to go. Okay, thank you. So good morning, everybody. My name is Martin Duffy. I'm the director for the Small Business Development Center in Brevard County, located at the Eastern Florida State Melbourne campus, where we're currently practicing social distancing and social isolation, I guess. So what I'm going to take you through today, first of all, on the SBDC, we're one of the SBA resource partners, and we provide general business consulting and guidance on an ongoing basis in one-on-one settings or through classrooms. But when emergencies pop up, we're often very actively involved in business resumption, business recovery activities. And that's actually what, of course, we're involved in right now. So we take a lead role in some aspects, but not all aspects of it. We help the businesses, guide them through the process, and help them determine what's the best steps to get back in operation, get their employees back up, get the supplier base active, and start making money again. Oh. Okay. So first, there's a lot going on. All you have to do is read the daily news. I guess late last night, I received notice that in Washington, that they approved a large package. I keep hearing different numbers going around, 2 trillion, 4 trillion, 6 trillion, someone said to me. I have no idea how much is involved or all the different aspects of it, but I'm really not here to prepared to talk about that because I just don't know the details. But what I can share with you is in a business resumption, there's usually 4 areas that the government provides support to the small business owner to have them get open, get operating again, and get them back into business. And those 4 areas is a state disaster loan. This is the 3rd time in 4 years that they've activated this in the state of Florida. And much of the presentation and some of the documentation and a portal I'm going to take you through is going to be contained in this section, state disaster loan. The second thing that provides support to the small business owner is the SBA disaster loans. This is where the SBA takes the lead. The loans are provided directly to the business owner from the SBA versus going to a bank, which is the usual process. I will talk about that today, and I'll provide guidance and a little bit of direction, a little bit of understanding there. But although we are not an active player in that, as much as we are in the state disaster loans. Then there are very often special grants, things that happen. In an emergency disaster like Hurricane Matthew or Irma, that would have been FEMA coming in and providing special grants to the community, both businesses and residential. I'm not sure what's going to come out in the package that Washington approved. I've heard talk of some special grants. You should just know it's out there and be on the lookout for it, but of course I'm not ready to talk about that. And then the 4th thing that provides support to the small business owner is special tax considerations. You know, tax day was extended into July. There's very often delays in tax credits, special tax rebates, things that have come out, again, from Washington mostly, sometimes from the state. But I'm not prepared to talk about that either. That keeps changing as well. And I bet part of the $350 billion package contains a combination of the grants and tax considerations. So I'm going to talk about 1 and 2, but you should have on your radar screens 1 through 4. In addition to getting you back in recovery, what can the landlord do to help? What can your supplier base do to help? What can every stakeholder do to help you get an operation? Can leases be modified? Can lease agreements be extended? Can balloon payments be postponed? What can you do to get up and running? So you should have all of the above thought process on trying to get back into recovery mode. So what the disaster loan and disasters is really governed by there's a state emergency response team. It gets activated when there's a state declared emergency, which there was. So in that case, the following groups right below it get activated and start getting involved. One is the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. The Florida Disaster Loan originated from them. They actually worked with the state legislature, the state governor to come up with the amount of money. They have the mechanics for the online application. They do all of the background infrastructure for the loan is handled by them. The site that you go and you would apply at, the forms that you would apply with, that all comes from the Department of Economic Opportunity. All of the parameters of the loan, who qualifies and who doesn't, how much, time frame, that is all determined by the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. We at the SBDC help provide guidance to the business owner. In the case of the disaster loan, what we do is we actually review the packages for quality assurance. We request the credit reports. We review the credit reports. We provide a summary to a loan committee whose members we obtain from the banking community and our volunteers. The decision is made by them. Sometimes they'll involve us in the decision, but actually we're not active decision makers in this at all. We strictly provide information and guidance to the clients, the business clients. And then when the loan goes through, approved, we handle the loan closing documentation. and provide the information back to them so that the check is cut and deposited in the applicant's bank account. So we kind of run the mechanics of it, but the mechanics are established by the Department of Economic Opportunity. The SBA generates their own loan program, which they have. They have an Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, EIDL. And they are aware of what we're doing. We share information back and forth with the SBA. They're not active in the disaster loan program. They have their own loan program, but information is shared back and forth. All right, so let's go right into what is the disaster loan? What exactly is it? What help is being provided to a small business owner? It's a bridge loan. It's meant to get the doors back open in the operation, and then money will come from other sources and it'll pay off the loan. It's a balloon payment. It's up to $50,000. I'll get into some of it. In special circumstances, it can go as high as $100,000, but it's generally up to $50,000. It's a 1-year time period, so balloon payment after 1 year. It's a short-term loan. It's not a grant and has to be repaid. This is the, like I mentioned, the third time in 4 years that they've had the program in place. Most people do repay. There is a default rate though, and it's very onerous charges if it does default. And I'll cover some of this in the frequently asked questions. So I talked about who's administering it. So some of the basic facts, it's $50,000, but it can be extended up to $100,000 in special cases. Now those special cases is a small business that has a high amount of ongoing fixed operating costs that has to be maintained, as well as a payroll base for key employees that have to be maintained. And it would be a cost base of about $10,000 a month or $120,000 in a year. If there's a large base like that the $50,000 is not sufficient based on what we're experiencing right now, they will extend it as far as $100,000, but it must be made in special cases. The overwhelming majority of small businesses that we deal with are less than that. The term is 1 year, 1 year from the date of the loan closing. The interest-free for the term of the loan, there's no interest on it, and it's 1 loan per eligible business. Not 1 loan per business owner, but 1 loaner per eligible business. And the deadline is May 8th, 60 days from the executive order. The applicant has to have ownership to the business, has to have majority ownership to the business, or if there are a number of partners in the business or other S Corp or LLC members, enough of them applying that they equal or greater than 51%. You have to agree that the purposes of the loan are used to start the business up, that it's not going to be for things like buying a piece of equipment or a down payment on another property to support expansion. Those would be ineligible. Or you're going to take the money and put it in the stock market and try to play the market. God forbid you try to do that. Try to play the market to get a good return on the money and then pay it back a year later. Not meant for that. There is no collateral required. It is an unsecured loan. So they will not put a lien on any of your assets or any property in this. Now this is going to be different. There's some differences here from the SBA loan, because the SBA loan in some cases will put a lien on assets for the next part that I'll be talking about. Okay, where do you get the money to repay it back? It is a balloon. So there's not an expectation that you have to start paying it back immediately, but there is an expectation that $50,000 comes due, and let's say for the sake of argument, it's on May 6, 2021, that you've been able to get another loan, another insurance payment, or you've had sufficient operating income over a 12-month period and have saved enough cash that you can pay the loan off. So the proceeds to pay it off either come from a loan or from an accumulation of sufficient operating income that you've had. If it does go into default, and people have experienced this from the hurricanes, there's a 12% charge. It goes to collection agency. There's collection agency fees. and their credit reports are negatively impacted. If the owner is experiencing problems, just like with the hurricanes we've experienced on these loans, we strongly recommend you engage us, you engage Florida First Finance, who is actually the bank on this. You strongly engage them early and try and have a workout provision for the loan. Do not wait for it to go into default. That's probably the worst thing that you can do. Try to negotiate whatever you can up front and not allow that to happen. That is, by the way, that is loan 101 in any loan that you have. So to be eligible, you have to be established and operating business physically located in the state of Florida. So one of the checks is we do check, look for the physical location that's on the paperwork to make sure that you're here. The business has to be a for-profit, not a not-for-profit. The SBS is a distinction with the SBA loan. The SBA loan can be used for not-for-profits, but not this loan. It has to be a for-profit company. Could be a sole proprietor, a partnership, LLC, or S Corp, doesn't matter. It's a for-profit. And there is an employee, the DEO has put out there an employee restriction on this. And they've decided it's 2 to 100 employees. Now, for purposes of the program, the DEO has established that means somebody who has a W-2 wage or a 1099. So if an owner is an S Corp and they're taking a salary, in addition to any profit distribution they have, and they have issued a W-2, that owner would qualify as an employee. If an owner is taking their income from the business solely as a distribution of profits and not as a salary where they have to pay payroll taxes, the owner would not qualify for as an employee. So that is a distinction that's thrown off. They did modify this as they've gone along. At one time, they didn't have 1099s, but we advocated that they put this in. Some owners, applicants have been thrown off by the owner eligibility aspect of it. So I do want to point that out. It's also in the frequently asked questions. The business applicant must demonstrate that the business has suffered an economic injury because of declared disaster event. Now, this is fairly easy to do if you're in the hospitality industry, the travel industry, because the declaration is out there and there's news articles all over the place on what's taken place. And it's simply a statement of how your impact, how it's impacted your business. Other businesses, particularly if you're in the medical industry, it could be a little bit more problematic. You'll have to demonstrate that because there hasn't been that amount of public acknowledgement of different aspects of the medical industry that may have suffered from this. So you want to make sure you take your time and document it. And I mentioned it has to be repaid. A couple things trip people up when they go through the application process and inordinately delay things. One is getting the correct documents. We've received applicants and notified of applicants that provide the application, but they don't provide both the business tax statements and the personal tax statements. They may provide one or the other, but if they have a Schedule C or 1120S, they're not providing those tax forms along with the personal tax forms as well. And again, we have to go back and request them. This is a requirement of the DEO. The next thing on here also that trips people up is the employer tax statements. Back to the W-2, the 941, the 1099 forms, proof that you have people that are paying payroll taxes. So we assist in this. Like I mentioned, we're very active in it. We actually, between many of you know Sandy Frimmer and I are working on packages today. We're going through it. We work with the loan committees and we're actively managing it. But the bridge loan is a short-term solution. The longer-term solution that we're going to cover next is the economic injury disaster loan from the SBA. Now, before I get to that, what I want to do is just show you the disaster loan portal. And if you don't have the email link or lose the email links, I usually just type Florida disaster loan Google, comes right up here. Hit the application button. Slow. There is an FAQ document too, as well as one we provide. I always recommend when people are filling in the application that they print out the FAQ, have it in front of them. Okay, Marcia, it's very slow. Maybe that's a good sign because thousands of people are applying for the loan.
It's
All
down
right.
right now.
Pardon?
It's down right now.
Is it down right now? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll come back to it. I'll describe a little bit. You'll go in. It's going to ask you some tee-up questions. It's going to take you through 7 sections. The sections that need to be filled out, and it's on the FAQ, will be sections 1, 2, and 7. And 3 is optional. We suggest you fill that in. You're right. Okay. And it's on the FAQ, so I'll cover it. But there's 4 sections, 4, 5, and 6, because this has been used for other purposes, the portal and the application process, you do not have to fill out. All right, so let me take you to, second. The FAQ document. Marcia, can you see this?
I can see, yes, I can see it.
Okay, good. Thanks for the feedback. So here's the FAQ document. I recommend, Marcia, you're sending this to everybody, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I recommend that you have this in front of you as you apply for the disaster loan. What's the disaster loan intended for? I mentioned that. What documentation do I have to prepare? Number 2, I mentioned that. How do I decide how much is needed for a loan? We recommend that you look at your fixed operating expenses and payroll over a period of time, not long. I'm not sure how long we're going to be in shelter in process. I hear different communications. I would suggest maybe a few months taking a look at that to determine how much you're going to need. What if you need more than you requested for the loan? We'll find out once you've submitted it. Well, then the EIDL loan is there to cover the difference. Can I submit a paper application versus filling it online? Yes, you can. And when you go to the portal, there'll be a paper documentation that you can fill out. What happens if I have an IT problem? There is a DEO hotline number that's here that you can call. If you have questions or need help with the required information, you go to us. At the end of the presentation is my phone number, along with my email address. You'd contact myself or Sandy Frimmer. This talks about number 8, the online sections you have to fill in. Can you get loans elsewhere if you apply for this loan? Absolutely. In fact, we recommend that you get additional loans. How do I obtain a special loan? You have to provide evidence that for such special circumstances, you have to provide evidence that your operating expenses on an ongoing basis are sufficiently large that you will definitely need that money. Who's involved? I mentioned that. What happens if I do not have, and this happens, what if I just started the business on March 1st and I don't have 2 years worth of business tax returns? Then you're going to have to provide a projection of income coming in. You might have had a business plan that helped you get started. You might need information from that. There'll be a reliance then on your personal tax forms instead of the business tax forms, but you're going to have to provide some evidence that you're basically a good credit risk.
Hey, Marty.
Yeah.
There was a question about demonstrating economic injury or if you're a pre-revenue startup. If they're in R&D and they're about a year or more out from generating revenue, would that same thing apply? It's gonna be based on projection and personal tax returns?
Yeah, the rule is the loan committee will make the final decision in it, but the thought is the doors are open for business.
Okay,
So if if I could go to that startup now, and I don't know what goods or services they're providing, and get that good or services and acquire it, then they're a functioning operating business. If the answer is no, because they're still in some kind of product development and formulation cycle, and they haven't really gone to market yet, the answer will be no.
okay, thank you.
So they're not operational. Doors, in theory, the doors are not open. 13, there's no liens put on independent contractors account. Yes, they do. Is working owner account as an employee? It depends is that answer. If they have an issued W-2, yes. If not, no. We will not do a credit check until the application is complete. We have all the required information. At that point in time, we will request credit from Experian. That's the credit agency we request from. What credit scores are acceptable? A 680 is considered plus, is excellent, and that will fast track, which I'll talk about below, the application. 620 to 680 is considered acceptable. Less 620 or less, or 620 less than 620 is very problematic. It will require additional documentation. There may be some derogatory comments in the credit history, some delinquencies. The applicant is going to have to explain it and provide sufficient documentation and a satisfactory answer to the loan committee. It won't be turned down right away. It will be looked at with the explanation that's coming from the owners, and they'll line up the explanation with the credit report from Experian is saying, and they'll make a determination. What is the fast track approval process? If it's a small loan and it's 680 plus, we skip the loan committee and go right to Florida First Finance, which is the bank on this, and they start processing the closing paperwork. So that's the fast track. We skip the whole review process and any interaction the client may have to have with the information coming from that. The loan committees are going to be in Orlando. It's not here locally. When we receive all the information, we provide it to the loan committee. They meet 3 to 4 times a week. There's actually 3 loan committees now. There is opportunity to scale it, but they have 3 to 4 depending on the caseload that they're getting. Okay. What credit agency? It's Experian. Some of the questions, why, if I'm an established and mature business, I probably have a business credit score, business FICO score, and if I'm dealing with a supplier base, then I have PAYDEX scores. Why don't you use those instead of the personal credit scores? Well, for the lion's share of small businesses, many of them do not have business credit scores established yet. They haven't established the credit under, or they don't have sufficient time underneath it. There's not a long history. And banks consistently have told us that personal credit scores is a key lead indicator to loan repayment. If you're paying your personal bills, you're going to pay the business bills. So they rely on the personal credit score. How long will it take to obtain the funds? Well, that is actually one of the faster parts of the process. Once the loan is approved by the loan committee, closing could happen with 48 hours. It's simply, we'll set up, we'll engage you immediately, we'll set this up. Right now, it'll have to be done virtually because of the isolation aspects, but we'll set it up. We have Sandy Frimmer in our office here as a notary, and they're trying to have a DocuSign process so we can get it notarized in this virtual setting. That's under review, but we'll make some allowances to get a notarized signature. We'll have that in place, and then the funds are dispersed within 48 hours. It's electronic disbursement right into the small business owner's account. So where they go to for if we need additional information, you'll hear from us. Florida First Capital, the bank, will notify the applicant of loan approval or denial. That will not come from us. Who's on the loan committee? It's a team of bankers. These are commercial lenders who have volunteered their time. We are not in the decision-making process. They make the decision. And since they have a lot of experience dealing with commercial loans, they're in a suitable position to really evaluate the risk with what they're seeing. Talk about ACH. If you're not able to pay a loan after 1 year, engage us. engage the bank, and we'll try to negotiate some kind of a settlement. You'll have to provide evidence of the circumstances, and then we go into what we can. Now, of course, there will be interest charged, but you can avoid collection agency fees and aggravation in dealing with the collection agency and the injury that results from having a bad credit impact. Starting date is after the loan. It actually has been approved and closed. Now, here is something the state allocated $50 million. And that's probably a drop in the bucket of what the state really needs, to be honest with you. As of a few days ago, I think they had 6,500 applicants. There are thousands and thousands of businesses in the state of Florida. If you do the math and say people get 50,000, then you can only support 1,000 applicants. So we're not turning away applicants because of the current funding level. We're requesting you send in the applications. We're going to send them to the DEO. They're going to see the magnitude of it, and then the expectation is based on the extensions that we're going through and being able to open the business and the magnitude of the dilemma, additional state funding will be provided to support this loan, and we keep going. That's the current expectation. I don't know if they've hit from approval process, if they've hit the limit right now or not. But for us right now, it's all systems go. We're going to keep submitting the information. What happens if my loan is not approved by the May cutoff date? Well, if your loan is in process, it's pretty much, we'll shepherd it through the process. So those are all the questions on that. And now I'm going to go back to the slides and talk about the SBA loan.
For some reason, your screen has frozen.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Is it working now?
No.
Now?
There it is. Now it is.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Now the SBA loan. Who's eligible for the SBA loan? Many of the same people are eligible for the disaster loan, plus the not-for-profit organizations. The agricultural cooperative, the agricultural businesses actually are not available for the Florida State Disaster Loan, but are available to the SBA loan. Just a quick takeaway and the difference between the Florida loan and the SBA loan in terms of eligibility and the terms and conditions. The SBA loan is for a larger amount over a longer time period, less restrictive to the applicants, but the terms, you have interest payments on it, whereas the state of Florida is a much smaller amount, very restrictive on who can apply, or more restrictive on who can apply, and of course a much smaller amount. So what is the criteria? Many of the same thing. This is loans 101. You have to have the credit history, have to the loan committee, in this case it's the SBA. It's not us, or the committee we put together. The SBA determines it. They make the decision. We are not involved in the decision at all. And they'll handle it as they've done with the other past emergency loans that have taken place. And the same eligibility. You have to be physically located in the declared county and suffering working capital losses due to the declared disaster. And not due to downturn in the economy or other reasons. This gets into the industry situation. If being very specific, like I said, some of the same information you'll need for the disaster loan, which you should be doing first, would be needed for this loan as well. How much can I borrow? You get up to $2 million. It's 3.75% for small businesses, 2.75% for not-for-profit organization, with terms up to 30 years. Unlike the disaster loan, this is not a balloon payment. This is a term loan, so you're gonna have to pay principal and interest right away once it's been approved and the funds have been dispersed. You can use it to pay debt, payroll, accounts payable, other bills. It's not intended to replace lost sales or profits or for expansion. It's meant to basically keep the doors open until you go through recovery, and then you can pay it over time. It's also not meant to refinance existing loans. It can coexist with other SBA loans, but it's not meant to refinance any other loans that are out there. For a loan over $25,000, the SBA will be looking at real estate collateral. They're not going to decline it if collateral is not available, but they will look for any kind of property as collateral on the loan, which again is different from the Florida State Disaster Loan. So I won't go through all this. Who's eligible? It goes through all the list of it. And the same thing as disaster loan, has to have a physical presence in the declared disaster area. Physical presence, not an economic presence. What that means is if, let's say, just so you know the distinction, let's say that you have a direct salesperson, or some company has a direct salesperson. That direct salesperson has a location in the state of Florida, but the physical presence is in, let's say, Washington, D.C. There's lack of a physical presence of the company, and so they would not get the loan here, although the company in Washington, D.C. could apply from that location. I hope I'm not confusing things on that. The economic injury disaster loan comes right from the U.S. Treasury. I mentioned before, you're not going through the bank where the bank is providing funds and then being guaranteed by the SBA. No, this is coming directly from the USA Treasury. They are the lender. The SBA itself is a lender in this case. And there is a direct loan, sba.gov. I tried to go to that earlier and that was under maintenance, so I'm not going to take you there. There's a large number that obviously are applying to that. There's no cost to apply. There's no obligation to take the loan if offered. And we mentioned the maximum unsecured loan amount is $25,000. And the application filing requirements are different than the disaster loan. There's still a standard application form that has to exist. There is also a tax information authorization form that the SBA can go to the IRS and look at confirm the applicant's tax records. There is also a schedule of liabilities. They're looking for what business personal liabilities that you have out there, other loans that exist, and personal financial statements. It's easier to do this if the web portal is up and running. It's easier to do this online and try to fill it out than it is to take all the paper applications, fill it out, and then they have a mailing address that you would send it in. So you have the delay right there of the U.S. Postal Service. All right, completes other information it may require, federal income tax return, a current year profit and loss statement, a current year to date. So in the case if you're applying today, that would mean February year to date for 2020 profit and loss statement. And additional filing requirements providing monthly sales figures. So there's more documentation required for the SBA. It's a larger amount, it's a longer term. There's more documentation required on this than the first form, or the first loan, which I mentioned, the Florida Disaster Loan. We talked about ineligible entries would be, I talked about was eligible, ineligible is agricultural enterprises, you can read that, religious organizations, charitable organizations. Now they would be not-for-profit, but in this case, that part of the not-for-profit is not eligible. Anybody associated with gambling concerns are not eligible for it. How to apply? You go to this web portal. You can also do the paper transactions. They have the mailing address. You can also, applications form may be obtained by calling them, going to sending an email to that support. You can also ask us questions. We'll try to help you through the process with the forums. We've helped a few clients already go through
the rental cards, yeah, they are. They're open.
Oops, somebody's not muted.
Just me. I have the doors locked. I'm not letting anyone in. So, I just come in. I'm here alone. Jeff and Linda got back from their cruise.
Stand by. Okay, Marty, I put you back on.
Okay, can you see it?
Yeah, sorry, there was an interruption. I couldn't figure out who it was.
Okay.
So I just shut everybody off. but you're back on.
Okay. Here's the information on how to apply, the portal that you go to, where you get the paper applications if you're going to do that. If you're not able to get there, I've saved some paper applications. We can send them to you if for some reason it's down. We've done it for a few people already, so just let us know. Submit it as soon as possible. Get it in there. With the magnitude of this disaster going over 50 states, you want to go through this and get it in quickly. It's a first come, first serve basis. They're not going to prioritize. It's the same as the Florida state disaster loan. It's just first come, first serve. It's a FIFO basis that they're working to. They're not going to screen all the paperwork and set aside certain applicants for certain industries over others. At least if they have not communicated it to the general public. I mentioned the portal. This is kind of the graphical user interface, what it looks like when you go there. It's typical questions that result in a decline. Technical application issues, lack of repayment inability, unsatisfactory credit history. It's the same as what we would have at a Florida disaster loan. This is basically, again, loan 101. Why do you get declined for loans? It's the same reasons. In this case, unlike the Florida disaster loan, you can appeal the process. With the Florida disaster loan, you cannot appeal it. The loan committee makes a decision. They're on to the next applicant. The decision is communicated by Florida First Finance, and there's no appeal process. In this case, there is an appeal process. Again, one of the reasons why you probably want to do both loans to make sure you can safeguard and there's a chance, even though one is declined, another may accept for other reasons. So I would encourage both, even though there's a lot of paperwork on your part and you got to send in all those forms and deal with the bureaucracy, I still would suggest you apply for both. The SBA loan, you do not have to take the funds. Okay, don't wait, get your loan paperwork in. All right.
Okay, so Marty, I have a few questions that have come up that, Sandy, thank you for jumping in and answering within the chat, but the things that I've noticed, specific question, if the business has an ABL financing facility generating working capital from receivables, can we still obtain an SBA loan to help cover employee operating costs as our receivable levels may diminish?
The answer is yes, I believe so.
Okay.
I don't know for certainty. I'll have to run that by. I believe so. I mean, that's getting in, a little more depth. I believe the answer is yes. I'll have to check. We're going to save this chat and send me the documentation, right? So I can. Yep. So I'll take the information that I can't answer and I'll send it to the South Florida SBA district, which is our representative. Okay. It's in Fort Pierce, Florida. They're located. Okay, thanks. Sorry, yep. I couldn't answer that one exactly. Next.
Is the 2 W-2 employees rule applicable for the SBA disaster loan like it is for the bridge loan?
No, it's not.
Okay. Is there a deadline for the
I just want to elaborate on that question. Remember that just in the conversation, for purposes of clarity, the state of Florida, DEO, has decided the eligibility on one loan. The SBA has decided the eligibility of the other loan. That they haven't tied together. It's not the same eligibility as what I covered in the slides. So right. No, the two employee rule is not a showstopper for the SBA loan.
Okay. And what is the deadline for the SBA loan?
They haven't communicated it, but if I remember in an emergency, it went almost up to a year, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Now, there's one where too, with what's happened in Washington, there's going to be more money is being provided. It's quite possibly that the extension period will be communicated as a result of those, the finality of it now. I guess this is the last package that they're doing, and there'll probably be a little bit more finality of how much money and how long, et cetera. Okay.
Okay. Yes, we will send out the, Sandy, can you guys send us, and when I send out the slides, we can go ahead and include the paper application that you got from Vince. Is that doable?
Yeah, we'll send it out.
Okay.
We'll send it out, okay.
Okay. I'm not seeing, most everything here looks, other than, saying the website's down. So you said apply sooner rather than later. And the website's down. So there's some folks.
Well, yeah, when I say soon, I'm assuming the website's gonna come up today.
Yeah.
So I'm talking immediately in minutes. I'm talking within today.
The loan application seems to be oriented toward recent historical loss. Hang on a second. The loan application seems to be oriented toward recent historical loss experience rather than a loan to keep paying employees during the current downturn, which we can reasonably expect to continue for weeks or months. Is the loan also based on projected losses?
Yes, you would do in your write-up, when you say your economic injury, you would mention you would indicate the projected losses. The financial paperwork that you're submitting is really going to show that you basically have made money in the past and you're going to be able to repay the loan, like any loan that you go for, where you have to provide tax returns. It's providing assurances that, along with the credit report, that you're credit worthy. That's the history. The history also allows them to understand the scale of your operation better, what you historically have been able to do, how large of a business you are. The historical information also provides the proof of employees, which may not necessarily be in the economic injury write-up that you have. So they go together.
Okay. What assistance is out there for small businesses without any employees on the books? We are owners and have no employees technically.
Well, that would be the Sba Loan, and we still help people. The SBDC will help people determine what the best solution is and guide them. We provide business consultation to anybody. They don't even have to be in business yet. We don't have an employee restriction, so guidance and counseling is available to the entire community, to the whole public.
Okay.
And the Sba Loan is available, as we had mentioned earlier, but not the state loan.
Okay. If you already have an SBA loan, are you allowed to get the disaster loan?
Yes.
Okay. And then someone asked about how you are communicating in this world of social distancing. I think Sandy answered that you're using email, you have Skype capabilities, faxing and Dropbox. Is there anything else that you want to?
How are we communicating to the public? So
Yeah,
we
how can we schedule meetings with you if they can't go to the office? I know that you're going to put your contact information on the screen. There we go. Perfect. But you guys are also employing Skype and other tools.
Yeah, with our experience so far, we've been doing mostly phone messages. We've used Dropbox, so that's going to change a little bit. But we take the information that's coming in. We use a Dropbox application. Take the information that's going to be coming to us from the DEO, because remember, it's an online portal. They're going to have the information. We'll probably put it into a Dropbox, and then we'll review the documents. We'll contact them via phone if we need some additional information, and or email, probably phone if an urgency, and then we'll work it that way. And in some cases, yes, we will use Skype for Business, probably the application we use, and we're going to work virtually. It hasn't been actually a challenge so far at all.
Okay, if we are pre-approved for a certain amount, can we take less than use the remaining amount later on if needed?
So let me just take it through. If I assume I need 50, if I put in an application, I get 50,000 from the state of Florida. I'll handle both of them. I get 50,000. You put 50,000 in the bank. You only need 25,000. Yeah, the other 25 is still in the bank for you to use. You've been authorized for $50,000. Use what you have to of it, and then after 1 year, you return it. You pay it back. In the SBA loan, you don't have to take, you take what you need. They're going to give you an approval and you don't have to take the full amount. You don't have to take any of the amount. You can just have it there that you've been approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Going back to that pre-revenue company, they are not making sales yet, but they do have employees on staff. Are there any resources that you're aware of?
So let me just play back. They're already legal formation. If we check a legal check, we're gonna find that they filed with SunBiz, so they're in business. They have employees. They have sales activities. I'm assuming that they're being able to sell. They're marketing their product and offering whatever they have. They're actively marketing it.
This just says pre-revenue companies.
Well, the devil's gonna be in the details. They're, you know, if they're, again, back in product development and they haven't gone to go to market, technically they're not operational and the doors aren't open. If they're past product development and then go to market, they just don't have any sales and they're actively marketing and able to take orders, then they're operational. My take on that question is, if they're what I talked about, they haven't even gone to go to market yet, they're not operational and therefore they wouldn't get the loan.
Okay.
I would probably take it though and let the loan committee is the final decider on everything. If they want to submit, we'll go through it. We ask them to write up in exact detail the state of business they are, and then we'll provide it to the loan committee and they'll make the final decision. Although personally, I believe the answer will be no. So I just want to let them know that.
Okay. If the loan includes projected losses, is there any guidance or rules regarding the term or period that can be included? For example, next so many months of projected losses, since we don't know how long we'll be impacted. Can we draw as we go?
Well, back to the first one. So if you say my projected losses, you're going to estimate, let's say over 2 to 3 months, and you say I'm going to need a state loan to cover me for a period. And then maybe because it's going to be a slow ramp up, I mean, just think of the restaurant community. They're all going to open their doors all at once, try to bring everybody back. And then they're going to all have to go to suppliers like Cisco, who's going to have to supply the entire restaurant community. God forbid they need toilet paper in today's environment, and get the doors open. So there's going to be a slow ramp up. So you can get the money, put it in the bank account, pay as you need, and draw it down. With the SBA loan, you get it approved and you draw it also as you need it, take what you need it. So it would extend over the period of time. I don't know if that answers the question or not. Do you think it was answered?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're just asking if were any specific guidelines of how long they could project losses, since it's an unknown. But I think it's sort of case by case. Next question is, sorry, I'm a single member LLC with 1 employee, but I have used contractors for short-term jobs with and issued 1099s. Is that okay?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. I don't think I see any questions that haven't been addressed at this point. And I know that our phone call-in folks don't have the ability to use the chat function. So I guess we're going to try and see if you are a caller that has a question. I believe you can unmute yourself and ask a question, and we'll just take it the best we can, see how this works. Is there anybody who called in, is not doing it on the web portal, that has a question?
Hi, I had a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I was wondering, now I went ahead and submitted the disaster application for the state already, but I was wondering at this point, how you check the status.
Well, that's a good question. You submitted it. I don't have information on what's been submitted yet centrally to the location. We're waiting for that information. We should have confirmation by the end of this week on the status of what's been submitted. What you know now is that they have it there, but definitely have not been reviewed by us, what's been submitted centrally yet. So we're hoping to get our hands on all of it by this weekend. And then we will send out a communication letting you know that we have received the paperwork and we're reviewing it.
Okay, so I should just wait until you find
Yeah.
out that you have it.
Right. Unfortunately, I don't have insight to all the applications they have there yet. It's being established. So I can't give it to you, but you could, when we receive it, we will let you know.
But you're the ones that send out the letter saying we have received it.
Yeah, we will let you know we've received it. We'll probably email you or call you, letting you know we've got it. We're working on it. We'll let you know before we pull the credit. If you have because once we pull credit, of course, it affects your credit score. And then then it'll go to a loan committee. Once we pull credit, if there's no issues, we'll submit it to the loan committee. We'll let you know it's been submitted to a loan committee, and then they'll let you know acceptance or denial. If it's accepted, we'll let you know the closing date.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have questions from callers that have questions at this point? Just giving it a second. Wait, I got a chat that just popped up. If pre-approved, how do we contact the bank?
Pre-approved.
I'm
not sure there's no.
Pre-qualified.
There's no pre-qualified. There's
Okay.
basically, I mentioned the fast track process for the disaster loan. And the way that would work is we would get it, we pull the credit, it shows 680 plus, excellent credit history, excellent credit score. We would look at it, everything's complete, documentation. We would then say we would then contact Florida First Capital, and then the bank would come back to us with the closing documents. We would contact them and schedule a closing date. We would let them know once we said it's fast tracked. There's no pre-qualified. It was just we make a decision of should it be fast tracked or not.
Okay.
The disaster loan.
Perfect. I emailed my app and docs to the disaster@floridasbdc.org email. Is that the best way to submit, or should I send it in another way? Also, will submitting in different platforms slow it down?
Well, you've already submitted it. They've actually changed that a little bit, and they recommend online. Will submitting in different platforms and a migration and go through the learning curve on this slow things down? The answer is yes. We haven't, the volume of this, unfortunately, I wish I could give you a better answer, but the volume that the SBA is going through, the CEO is going through, is very significant. And changing systems in place will slow things down. But the purpose of changing processes and systems right now, as they've gone through it, is it's going to make it faster in the long run for everybody subsequently from this day forward, because they'll have greater capacity. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay.
Hey.
Go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, thanks a bunch for what you guys are doing. This is great, and it's what our community needs to try to stay in touch and move forward and get one good source of info. And really, that's my question going forward. As the money comes down from the Fed, whatever this program looks like that, comes out of the Senate today and gets approved, are you going to be the channel, in your opinion, are you going to be the channel that gets all the information and is able to disseminate it? And the last part of that question is, how are we going to get that information communicated as well? And the reason I'm asking that is that there's so many disparate sources running around. If you focus the community's information channel here, it's going to be a great way to get this done and eliminate a lot of confusion in the market. But is it reasonable to assume that you're that channel?
So if I could start, Marty, with that, Marty, that's specifically why we did this platform the way that we did with all of the cooperating agencies. So we're already working on we're already working on our next seminar. Actually, we have one scheduled Friday with the SBA, with that South Florida office with Vince Lopresti. And we're also going to have some folks who have gone through the process available to answer questions and do sort of tips for success from their perspective. And that's what we're trying to do is all of those agencies that I mentioned at the beginning, the 4 chambers in Brevard, the EDC, Groundswell, WeVenture, SBDC, we're trying to communicate all together and create one portal where everybody can get their questions answered and participate in the conversation.
Awesome. That's great info, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yep. Marty, did you have anything you want to add?
No, that's a good answer. The chamber is a good focal point for all this information. And, you know, we're all trying to, all the resource partners, WeVenture, us, SCORE, EDC, even CareerSource, we're all trying to get the information out to the public as fast as we can. And the information is changing. So I totally get the confusion that's out there. Things are moving very fast and furious right now, and it's difficult to get a handle on anything. So Marcia, I appreciate you taking the lead, but you know what we'll try to do is on our website, on our Facebook, through use of social media, through constant contact, those who are in constant contact with us, even Twitter, we'll try and communicate everything we know and give you, at least from our standpoint, our website that should have everything.
I think that most of the, I know all 4 chambers, and I know most of the organizations have either set up separate pages, disaster resources. We're dedicating our Facebook feed to putting out information about community updates, as well as these kinds of, this kind of information as much as possible. But there will be a series of webinars that we continue to hold for everybody. But, I know EDC is doing regular notifications, all of us are, so we're trying to push it out as best we can, but I'm pretty sure everybody has a page up on their website. And I will try to include all of our resource partners' websites in my follow-on email. One last question, does the SBA offer debt consolidation loans with competitive rates on top of the disaster loans?
You know what? Since Marcia, I heard Vince is coming later in the week.
You're going to do this soft handoff to that. I understand.
Yes. Here's what I'm going to do. After we're done with here, I'm going to send the slides to Vince just so he knows the topics that we talked about and give that question to him to be prepared for your session coming up.
Okay, great. All right. So again, stay tuned. I believe we have a call with Vince scheduled for Friday using this same platform, and we will try to notice all of you through all the various communication channels and allow you to register for it. But I don't see any other questions in the chat, and I don't have anybody else that has tried to go live. Sandy's mentioning that the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center of Brevard Emergency Operations Center, has activated ESF 18 desk, which is the business support desk. It's being manned by Peter Kranis with the Office of Tourism right now. And we are getting communications and having regular phone calls with them as well. So that's another resource for you as well. So with that, I think we'll close out today's session. Thank you all for participating. Really appreciate it. And we look forward. Thank you, Marty, for all of the great information. And thank you to Sandy for helping monitor the chat session. And with that, we'll end the meeting and sign off. Good luck to everybody. If you need something, let us know. We're continuing to try to bring you information as quickly as we can. So take care.
Thanks, Marsha.
Thanks. Thank you. Bye.
I think that worked pretty good.